Oh, hey, I got a bit turned around back in there. There's like a guy shooting ooze out of a tentacle. We kind of need some fresh sheets. Is that a gun? Forgive Me Father 2, a new addition to the boomer shooter genre. And I've got to say, its art style, music, and general vibe is top tier. Whether it's the guns, the animations, the enemy design, I love it all. If you enjoy Lovecraftian design or boomer shooters, Forgive Me Father really does nail it. I'll admit, I have a soft spot for the genre. I grew up regularly watching my uncle play Doom on a fully kitted out, old school, cream coloured Windows PC. My god, that bad boy must have had like 3 megabytes of RAM. They are some of my most cherished memories, and part of my first introduction to video games. Forgive Me Father 2 is in many ways the perfect homage to that style. Before we get further in, full disclosure, Byte Barrell, the company behind this game, did provide me a game key free of charge, but that came with no requirements that I talk the game up. I get no kickbacks. The key is all we needed to try it out, and they haven't received any notice or input on what's being said in this video. And in saying that, I do have some areas they need to improve on, which I'll discuss in this review, so let's dive in. Forgive Me Father 2 throws you straight into the shoes of a priest stuck in an asylum. At least, that's how it first appears. After waking up, you quickly find yourself up against the other inhabitants with nothing but a knife, as the game's tutorial leads you around the asylum. I was incredibly surprised to see the first level almost play out like a horror experience. You'll explore dark corridors while hearing the moans of the zombie-like creatures roaming the halls, before eventually finding your first gun and jumping into the thick of it. Later into the game, you unlock all of the insane and Lovecraftian weapons they've put together, with their most recent addition being a railgun-like obelisk. The game does an incredible job with its comic book style visuals, excellent use of lighting, and sound to create atmosphere that you often don't get in this genre. They've really leaned into their aesthetic, and it really paid off. The music slows as you move through tight quarters, letting you take in the environment around you, which is lovingly handcrafted in the same style, before the music starts to roar into action as you enter large combat encounters, and it absolutely slaps. The game's pacing felt fairly good the whole way through, although enemy variety did become a sticking point for me, and was my largest criticism of the game overall. I found by the end of my playthrough, I'd often fought the same 5 or 6 enemies constantly throughout, and with very little separating the encounters. This, however, was addressed with their most recent update, which came out this week, which revealed new enemies, weapons, and the devs went back to old levels, changing the variety of enemies throughout, which, after playing through them again, addressed most of those concerns. This is an early access title, which means they are continuing to develop this, and I was really pleased to see them change one of the few concerns I had with it during development. You can find more details about that on their Steam page, their plans for pricing, content, and how long they intend to remain in early access. Right now, the game's story isn't voiced, which was a bummer, but at full release they will have recorded voiceover and a larger branching story, but for me, the gameplay in these types of games is the most important part, which brings me to my other criticism. Prior to the update, there was a single boss and a number of levels with branching paths in the game that did allow me to follow the second path after finishing, which was a nice addition. But the original boss fight is rough. Very, very rough. And it was a bit of an underwhelming end to the game in its current state. I do want to stress, because I enjoyed the game, that more bosses are to come, and the second boss added in this week's update was incredible. It's a great spin on the genre, but the other endgame boss is an encounter that, despite being rebalanced in this update, is incredibly underwhelming. Having you stand in an octagon while an eldritch being flies above you shooting at you. No cover, and some of the attacks felt pretty unfair. I don't really know what they were thinking here. It's a little uninspired after seeing some of the grander environments Forgive Me Father 2 had to offer, and I think what it really needs is a few more varied attack animations, maybe some minor enemies that drop pickups for you to regain health, and some cover options. I looked around the community discussions on this and found most people holding a similar opinion, that the devs struggled with good boss design in the past. I hope this is an area they continue to work on prior to full release. I should stress, again, the newest boss release definitely shows some good design improvements, and a clear visual style, but I hope they give the other boss a second pass because the difference in quality is stark. Level design, on the other hand, sees you fighting through anything from a university filled with monstrosities and puzzles to trenches from the Great War. How you end up in one or the other, I'll have to let you find out for yourself. The game's comic book Lovecraftian style works wonders in both the enemy design and in those level layouts, with small details littered around giving you slight insights into the game's universe and exactly what is at play behind the scenes. This is all well complemented by an excellent soundtrack and a good weapon and skill-based upgrade system. Players have the option of spending their currency on fleshing out their Dark Tome, which grants you a taste of the powers inhabiting this world, and on new weapons after each level. You unlock all your base weapons just by playing, and later get the option to unlock other varieties of that weapon type using artifacts you find in the various levels, often hidden in secret locations, encouraging you to explore. These are simple systems, but for a shooter of this style, it's exactly what you want. An opportunity to augment your playstyle while still remaining true to the genre. Every weapon is animated beautifully. They sound chunky, and watching a group of enemies explode into red goo never got old. I also found that ammo was perfectly scarce. This might be a weird topic to bring up, but ammo supply in a Doom-style shooter is so important. I found I was constantly needing to swap between weapons to ensure I was using and conserving ammo well, so that I always had the right gun for the job, and that was important, as some of the later enemy varieties really benefited from using the correct weapon to take them down immediately. I was playing on the hardest difficulty, so that might vary per difficulty level. This almost alien-inspired machine gun was perfect for taking down groups of chaff enemies, but with its wind-up time, wasn't great in close quarters. By contrast, the shotgun is a classic killer close range, but had a longer reload animation and was a nightmare when I clicked on empty and needed to reload quickly. But this is where the Dark Tome came in clutch. With upgrades that can increase your reload speed, increase your flashlight's battery power, or give you life steal for a short time. The enemy designs currently in game are great for the genre. You have the classic zombie-style enemies who hold an extra head, and as an additional touch of fun, if you happen to headshot them, they'll just pop on the extra head they have handy and keep coming. They'll die in one hit to the chest, but if you like me and aim for the head, they're actively combating against this tactic to keep ahead of the game. Other enemies include a grenade-launching brute, sniper-style enemies, and horrors beyond comprehension. They all had their strengths and weaknesses, and I appreciated that when I'd enter a room, I had to think about the multiple angles at play, and the strengths of all the enemies in front of me. It wasn't always a simple matter of killing what moved first, with specific enemies able to block or dodge attacks, requiring thinking carefully about how I wanted to take down certain enemies. But ultimately, this is a Doom-style shooter, and at the end of the day, movement mixed with good accuracy will always come out on top, and the movement always felt fluid. Forgive Me Father 2 really nailed that feel of a classic boomer shooter in its movement, enemy variety, aggression, and weapon feedback. Seeing the word headshot pop up over an enemy I'd just expertly taken down was always a quick shot of dopamine, and after finishing all the current content in a little over 4 hours, I was left wanting more. The 2 new enemy varieties added in their update this week, combined with the rebalanced enemy variety, has really highlighted to me how much Byte Barrell are doing to improve their user experience, while working on community feedback. As mentioned, the game is in early access. Now, if that's not for you, I get it. This may be a game that you're better off waiting to try on full release, especially for those story aspects. I am definitely jumping back in when the voice acting is included. I read through the current story snippets littered through the game after each level, and I'm really intrigued. I love a good psychological mystery, and with this setting, it's really attracted my interest, so much that I know I'll be giving this a second pass. If you're not the type to want to play through twice though, I'd recommend waiting on that full release, but there is definitely a lot here to enjoy with the multiple weapons, upgrades, secrets. It's got a great deal of replayability if you do want to jump in now. So my overall feelings for Forgive Me Father 2 are those of enjoyment. It's a great game, it's a lovingly handcrafted world, and the overall style fits perfectly with this genre. The lighting at times can make things a little bit harder to see, but I found bumping the brightness really solved that problem. But if you're there more for the aesthetic and the style, then that doesn't really matter. Keep the lighting low and enjoy the atmosphere behind it. If you're there for more of the twitch shooting action experience, then bump the brightness up a little bit and you've got a fantastic game. It works in both ways, and I'd actually like to go through a playthrough on a lower difficulty with the lighting low, because it adds so much atmosphere. Thank you for checking out this video, guys. Forgive Me Father 2 is out now on Steam in early access. It plays really well. I didn't actually hit on this but I didn't catch any bugs during my playthrough, so I have no reservations recommending it if you're a fan of the genre. If you want to help me and the channel out, throw a like on the video and subscribe for more. But you being here, that's already enough. Let me know in the comments what your favorite shooter in this genre is, and I'll catch you down there to talk about it. See you in the next one. Cheers.